Gojira FORTITUDE. This would be the band's 7th studio album, and this is the first review I've ever done of a Gojira record. I'm a band that would probably agree with this, with this specific shirt, in a way, especially if it means, saving the environment, I guess. Which they do mention plenty of, and have done plenty of, whether with singles or in other specific albums. So far, the one I can't pronounce that came before Magma is the one that I like. You could say it in the comments. I'll let you have that. But yes, I've enjoyed this, and I've needed an excuse to finally talk about Gojira. I could have, given the time frame of when I just started finally doing the YouTube channel. Magma was already around, but I heard things that steered me away from talking about it, but never anything away from listening to Gojira in general. But I've never had a chance to sit down and listen to full albums and stuff. I've seen maybe some, more so just some reactions to songs and stuff through maybe Lost in Vegas. Check those guys out if you want. But the thing is, I've been looking for an excuse event. After a while, I was like, I need an excuse to deep dive into these albums. And the new album was coming out, so I was and I wanted to talk about this. And you know what? I picked the best time and the best album to start reviewing it out for them, And Fortitude is that record, man. I mean, shit. And I already heard most of the singles. I did hear Another World, wasn't too impressed with it at the time. But having listened to this album, I went through them, and I could say Magma is kind of the weakest. So, given how long it's been since then, they needed to make an album that would make up for that. Do a couple of things, especially given what had happened with the band a couple years prior and before COVID became a thing. This band is technically known as more of a progressive metal, or primarily initially a technical death metal type band, and then their progressive metal sound started to evolve into a more hard rock lenient in a more sludge metal, stonery rock-esque way. It's kind of way, while still kind of catering to some elements of tech death, but in a way that seems more lenient towards melodic death metal and more new wave American heavy metal influences, as opposed to more traditional based death metal. Or at least more so, not as much of a Meshuggah meets Metallica kind of a way, though that seems, speaking of that which, the band has become more aware of them possibly being that kind of big of a deal of a band. And it seems they decided to take to that with their recent album Magma, and the singles for that record are solid. But the thing is, they also want to be more comparable to what happened with Mastodon, and to some extent Baroness, but way more Mastodon. And having binged through albums, I can tell. Magma's my least favorite as an album as a whole. I could already tell this album was going to be a bit of a not so interesting of a listen the moment I heard the first track on the Stain thing, which was The Shooting Star. And but Born for One Thing is quite the interesting track, even from its own lyrics, mostly just talking about we are born for one thing, born to tame the greatest fear of all. We are born for one thing, born to face the greatest fear of all, which is death. Which is essentially talking about death itself. We are basically born to just this sort of nihilistic take on just how we're just born to die. And just learning how to deal with it and cope with it, I guess. To this world only to wind up being mostly just a world of death, and this having to learn to accept death, but it becomes a great fear amongst us as humans, in that sort of way. And, or at least it seems they don't focus as much on concepts as previous albums had. The last album was considered a little more dire. This album, from what I'm told, is supposedly more of a kind of a companion piece, but not really. Like a loose companion piece to Magma, because this one they have become more focused on kind of leaving off from it and staying in the hard rock style, more of that hard rock alt metal-y, more new wave American heavy metal influenced hard rock alt metal sound, or alt proggy type based sound that it seems sort of at this point Mastodon has been leaning towards. More so since Crack the Sky, or at least started to come back to since Emperor of Sand, and then, but in a way starting to incorporate some more of what Baroness did with Purple, sonically and stuff like that. I'm getting a lot of other influences from other genres, and it seems they've taken aspects of their past and found a way to mold them into a more cohesive and more accessible way, simply audible way that works better, as opposed to how Magma was kind of a misstep. This is a better step forward, and honestly, I think it's an album I want to kind of put up there, even at its supposedly weakest moments that I could see some people having problems with. I like how this thing is. Yes, even from the moments of tracks like Amazonia, which it seems is more about the fact that there's the Amazon forest, it's rainforest, itself is how it's burning to the ground. How we're basically showing their environmentalist side and saying, while also being respectful of the culture in a way, and musically in a way, and by relying on the Amazonian tribes' more indigenous musical sounds and using didgeridoos and stuff like that. The band's from France. I mean, they went through some stuff, including one guitarist, I think, wound up, because of a very, very bad weathered tour in U.S., somehow wound up having a very James Hetfield incident and wound up getting himself sort of almost burnt to a crisp, or at least some form of maybe second to third degrees. But yet somehow he managed to get a good enough amount of get water cooled off and with fire extinguisher, and then gained some medical attention, was good enough to play again. They just didn't do their pyrotechnics or whatever for their live set, and kept going like they didn't miss a beat performance-wise. And from what I'm told, that elevated them even further as a band in terms of legacy, and which is why they needed whatever this album needed to be. All they needed to really do at this point was make an album that was better than Magma, and personally I think they did, and it's definitely going to be, I kind of want to put it up there. I'm glad I waited for this and a chance to look at their back catalog, because I start to notice with Amazonia, I initially just thought Sepultura, and I'm not the only one who thinks that apparently, but also it's sort of reminiscent of, they've done these things before experimentally through albums like The Link, and even not so greatly, honestly, with The Way of All Flesh. I'm sorry, Jader. I wanted to like it, but no, it's not. Good on you, man. It's just that one, it didn't do it for me. But it's definitely not it's not by no means their weakest album. Thank God. We can all agree. I think we should all agree that it is, and there might be some elitists that will probably just try to dismiss this album like they did with Magma. But I don't think there's going to be as many people as pissed with this one, because at least it feels like a Gojira record at its core, much better than previous ones. And you could tell with this one, they finally are willing to bring back some aspects while also willing to experiment with some other ideas that they seemingly hadn't done even on the last record, and if they did, it didn't go over as well. This album, I feel like, will be there once more around the sun. of their catalog, and it'd be a better, more refined palate cleanser from the Hunter, from how that record was for Mastodon to the Hunter. This will be the Magma. And I think they relied a little more on major chords than minor chords to a degree somehow. And I like what they did here. I mean, the greatest miracle is burning to the ground, is what they're saying. That there's a fire in the sky, you're in the Amazon, the greatest miracle is burning to the ground. This is mostly them just talking about how we need to do something about the trees and everything are burning and all that stuff, and while having this nice little didgeridoo, all these other nice little sounds going on. And then there's so many other great tracks on here. Another World had some decent cuts. I mean, for some reason, with what I'm using, I don't have anything with lyrics. Yeah. Except, apparently I do have Into the Storm, which I feel like songs like Newfound are there's going to be a lot of cool, heavier sounds on here. Newfound. Hold on, I was a little unsure of what to start with, but eventually it took off a little more. Some tracks I didn't like that I initially didn't like. Even Amazonia I didn't like, but by the time I got to it, after Born for One Thing, which was a great choice to start with, and then it just allowed the other songs to flow better than what they were separately on their own, like Amazonia and Another World. Even the chant, and despite Fortitude being at least the title track being more of an interlude to the chant, and a lot of people want to kind of crap on this song, but personally, I was worried at first, and then I heard these vocals. I was kind of mowing the lawn one time, and the rest of the time, and then I had to stop and be like, once the verses came in, and I'm like, is that the dude from Torch? Shit, yeah, man, I'm all about this. I'm all about these kinds of clean shit. Yeah. Or at least it took me a while to figure out who it was I was thinking of and what band. You know, because literally the vocals are very much similar to the dude from I'm forgetting his name. But frontman from Torch, another sort of sludgy, stonery band that has some progressive, some Thule alt-prog tendencies, though I'd say they're more Deftone metallic shoegaze, and then I would say that, but I've talked about them before. I think their last record, if I can remember the name of it for some strange reason, it's not popping up on me. Whatever. But they're great. They're actually one of the better bands that are a little more accessible. That's worthwhile checking out. And I get like some similar vibes to like with the way the chant is done. It's meant to be sort of like an Alice in Chains meets Queens of the Stone Age sort of chanty thing going on. More so Queens of the Stone Age. Like classic Queens. I ain't doing it right. So don't go by my chant thing. So, but some people didn't like it. That's why I stayed away from that one. Into the Storm I did hear. I mean, and there's some good pump up tracks on here. Like especially with with Into the Storm. Say something about awakening, the rebellion you've felt before. Awake, change your course, laws will follow. Restart, reactivate the core. Rise, yeah, you come out, you're awake now. Put this in the air, you are hiding, now yourself into the storm. Stand, gather your strength, raise your eyes. Fear not the demons you're up against. Now that you dove down, found the bottom, begging for air. Sad how long it takes us to rise and fight. I guess it's more the dealings of war, though. It seems kind of makes my choice of shirt seem a little hypocritical. I don't know, but it's more just trying to do something. I mean, it's more of a pump up. We need to do something like this world's fucked up. We need to do something about it or something. And there's other tracks on here I do enjoy. I love Newfound for what it is. Sphinx ain't bad. Newfound has a great little moments when it decides to eventually get into in a similar way to Born for One Thing, and how it eventually goes for those harmonic bend, those pinch harmonic bends. That's fucking amazing. Personally, to me, I think this, if there's ever a time to get into Gojira, this album is honestly the best gateway. In a way that I don't think even certain diehards can necessarily argue, as they would have for Magma, against that being the case, you know? Because this one at least feels and brings more of what you expect in a good way from Gojira, while sort of trying to bring some new things here and there. Well, but it doesn't. It's probably the most accessible yet more true to form of Gojira, while still trying to appease to a more accessible audience. It's the best foot forward of what they were trying to do with Magma that just never clicked with anybody else. Melts to me, and I feel like tracks, and besides Born for One Thing, I do feel like Hold On has its moments as well. I feel like some of the more radio-friendly stuff, like the chants and whatnot, will do something. The trials might come off a little better to some people, and eventually Grind comes in and just, they nail it, and for some reason they just picked the best way to end this album with Grind. Sphinx is another great one. Into the Storm's great too, for being one of those that I could see pulling off live for them. I don't know if I could say it's the best album of theirs in their discography, but it's definitely going to be an album of the year contender, without question, from this band. This album rocks. I don't know if I could say masterclass just yet, but I love what they're doing with this thing. I like what they're doing. I want to keep coming back to this thing. It's worth your time. It's just say this album ain't great is bullshit. You know, it's because it is a great album. And it's hard to say that this band hasn't necessarily. It just had some low moments, like Magma's being considered. There's some people who might defend their first record, I guess, but I think they came more into their own around the Link, and even more so in Mars Sirius, which is where they really became more of a proggier type band. I feel like this record finds a better balance of mixing aspects of certain moments, because even I feel like with the start of a track like Sphinx, even Newfound, I think, has moments of the more pitch shifty stuff they did on Magma that was kind of sort of Dimebag Darrell-esque. But other than that, for the most part, it's a more easily accessibly digestible way of what Gojira truly is. And like I said, this album does rock. There's going to be some people who will, I'm not saying it's my favorite of Gojira's, but it's looking like it could end up being that. I know it's already I could say it's album contender for album of the year of 2021. At least definitely for on the metal side. Though there is an album that's kind of sort of fighting it, but that at least the elitists might like a little bit better. But as far as an album that will serve as the greatest heavy metal, yet also gateway into both the band's discography and probably just into more modern heavy metal in general, this is a great album to be that. For sure, without any question. Although I don't know about the Fortitude track in terms of, because I know someone I talked to in a chat wants to use that for a sample and have a rapper on it. I'm not sure about that right now, but we'll see. But overall, what did you guys think of? What did all of you guys think of Fortitude by Gojira? Just this is apparently not the only good album that came out. I don't know if people are going to overlook this as much as that other album I need to talk about eventually. I'll get to it. Don't know if it will come out, when it's going to come. That album is going to come out. Reveal's going to come out, though. I'll try to record it before I get my shot tomorrow, as of the day of this recording. So, my second shot. So, anyways, what did you think? Leave a comment below, let me know. Also, links in the description to both my personal Facebook page, the Dungeon Facebook page for those who are in Schmodown, the Schmodown stuff I do. Also, links to my. Also, catch me around Twitch and my links from my for Twitch and for stereo. Eventually, I'll do something with stereo. I don't know when, but we'll see. We'll see what goes down the pipe. And with that, thanks to everyone who, at this point, who hasn't seen me subscribe and you want to see your name having been shouted out at the point of which I did the video. Check that video out. So I guess keep it random, keep it real, keep it rocking. I will see you next video. Hopefully, it will probably be the new Royal Blood album, apparently, Typhoons. Yeah, I'm going to talk about it. And it may kind of surprise people. Maybe. Unless you heard me kind of talk about villains, then never mind. You'll have an idea of what I feel about it. So, it's by Queens of Stone Age, I mean. But, and I'll talk more about that in depth later. But anyways, take care, y'all. Keep it rocking.